because they're not just gonna.
Well, yeah, and it's
We are getting a lot of additional people now.
so we need to get everything in there so the pot is bigger.
Yes, yes. The mechanisms are bigger.
Yeah, I know.
Or folks codes. So I brought out one of my suits.
And I would like them up before.
I forgot I had this. Taking down a closet once since I got here.
That's tall.
People are logging on.
Okay, welcome to the June 4th meeting of the Trinity County Board of Supervisors. If you will join us, we'll stand for the pledge led by Supervisor Cox.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, well, we have two presentations today. The first, under Clerk of the Board, is receive an update from U.S. Forest Service representatives regarding matters of interest in Trinity County. Welcome, Ben.
Good morning, Board and Chairman. So Ben Sundahl, Deputy District Ranger for the South Fork and Trinity River Management Units. And I'm just going to share with you guys a little update over the past month on the west side of the Trinity National Forest. So I'm going to start off with land acquisition update. This project is the Pacific Crest Trail, Trinity Alps to Castle Craig, so the far northern portion of the county. Not sure how familiar you are with this land acquisition. And a lot of it was SPI land that has been will be donated through wilderness donation, which is the first phase, and we have a briefing with the Chief of the Forest Service this Wednesday for that first phase, which is the wilderness donation. Second phase will be to purchase the remaining land through Land Water Conservation Act funding, and that will come in the next within the next year. And then hopefully all acquisition of land will be complete late 24, early 25 for a grand total of roughly 7,000 acres. So pretty excited about that. Public Service Staff Officer Brenda Tracy has been working really hard on this over the last few years. Back in 2020, 2021, the forest had hosted several public engagements throughout Trinity County, along with elected officials, tribal, local tribes. And we've received letters of support back in 2021 from Trinity County, Siskiyou County, and Congressman Huffman's office. So super excited about that, seeing some movement on that. And hopefully we'll see that across the finish line here within the next year and a half. So partnerships, I'll just quickly touch on partnerships, mostly related to landscape funding. The landscape team has been really working hard over the last week and a half to meet our grants and agreements deadline, which was last Friday. Happy to report that we were able to submit all of our grants and agreements tied to landscape funding. So we'll see that start materializing the rest of fiscal 24 and going into fiscal 25. So super excited to see that money come back into Trinity County and within our partners that we work with. Planning, Tara and I were able to present our 5-year program of work to the forest leadership team a week and a half ago. So this 5-year program of work basically is better to see it on a map, but I don't have a map with me, unfortunately. But the large landscape projects that we are proposing over the next 5 years in Trinity County. So the intent is to, we're working on High and Palm. That planning phase is close to being finalized. We'll jump to Big Ranch, which is on the TRMU and kind of skirts onto the South Fork and the Six Rivers National Forest. Once Big Ranch is done, we'll jump into a project around Hay Fork. So the intent is to jump back and forth between both management units yearly. So we're distributing the workload. So that went well. Really no questions from the forest leadership team. So we will incorporate that into our open houses that we have that we will be scheduling here this summer. Digital path cameras, the fire cameras, a decision should be signed soon. I won't steal terrorist thunder, so I'll just say it should be signed here soon, and more to come on that. August phase 2 decision should be signed soon as well. So some good movement on a few projects that have been lingering out there. Within our timber program, those folks have been working in Trinity camps, the campgrounds around that Trinity camps project area, which is the campgrounds north of Weaverville going all the way up into Trinity Center. They're also working on some of the tree markings and layout around Trinity Center Airport to take some of those hazard trees down to meet the FAA requirements for approach and departure pass, I believe it is. They've completed their work in the High and Palm project area. And then they've also went into an agreement with the HOOPA to do some thinning in the plantations for roughly 350 acres as well. So a good partnership there with the HOOPA tribe. On prescribed fire, happy to announce that at the last minute on Friday, after a regional office changing direction with agreements and funding, we were able to submit and get into the portal the prescribed fire support agreement for High and Palm and Hayfork volunteer fire departments. So really excited about that. And then as we seen from High and Palm to Big Ranch and other projects across the Trinity County landscape, we'll be incorporating and including those other additional volunteer fire departments underneath that landscape funding for prescribed fire support. So over the next 5 years, you'll see additional Trinity County volunteer fire departments renew or create new agreements to provide us that prescribed fire support with landscape funding. So super excited to see that happening. Fuels implementation, they just wanted to report out that around the Denny area, along the road, 15 feet from the road edge, they're removing brush through mastication and removing hazard trees, and then doing that all the way up to the trailheads in the Denny area. And that is to reduce the impact of a tree coming down and additional fire scars to the public to make it safe for those individuals to enjoy that area. So great work out there. And that's through, that's called the Trailhead IRSC project. So moving into fire suppression discussion. So our fire suppression workforce continues to prepare for the 2024 fire season. The South Fork Management Unit has already had 2 small fires, less than an acre. One fire was near High and Palm, no, not High and Palm, Hayfork, which was a vehicle fire that spread into the vegetation. Quick response between all agencies, so that was held to less than an acre. We also responded to a escaped debris pile in the Wildwood area, which was held to less than an acre as well. So good response between all the agencies for those 2 fires. So as you can see, fire season is slowly starting to approach, and happy to report that I'll do a couple comparisons here. In 2023, we had roughly 4 to 5 engines out of 11 staffed on the Trinity County side of the Shasta National Forest. And then with this year coming into play, with the ability to enact the change in duty station locations to where they initially start out, but still staff the fire stations within Trinity County, we are up to 9 out of 11 engines staffed. So huge success in just that slight change to where they basically just in-brief their folks and hit the trucks, get on the road and come out to Trinity County and staff our stations during normal business hours. In times of heightened fire danger, we will still enact extended staffing, 24-hour staffing to ensure we have that proper coverage within our response areas across Trinity County and the forest. So huge success there. Trinity Hotshot Crew in 2023 was at 18 individuals. This year they're at 23, and that crew can staff between 20 and 25 individuals. So 23 is pretty good this year. And then Helicopter 506 had an increase in staffing as well. So across the board for fire suppression staffing within Trinity County with the Forest Service, we had a nice increase over this winter's hiring events. The South Fork and Trinity River Management Unit fire leadership, along with myself and other fire leadership from the headquarters office, were able to attend the Paynes Creek Fire Cooperator Meeting. It's kind of the pre-season fire kickoff meeting between the Forest Service, Tehama Glen Cal Fire Unit, Shasta Trinity Cal Fire Unit, industry, mainly timber companies. We met there, talked about pre-season fire, and then what the fire season will look like. So great meeting, good overall attendance. So happy to see a lot of people there, good turnout. Our fire suppression staff also were able to attend the Trinity County Fire Readiness Drills, the Trinity drills. I think it was this past weekend. So really good turnout there. Super excited to see our group interact with the local volunteer fire departments and then SHU Cal Fire. So just building that big relationship family network. So great work this past weekend. A quick update on recreation. All campgrounds are open, minus Burnt Ranch, Scott Flat, and Goldfield. The Smart Center crews have been a big help with the opening of all of our campgrounds this year. So kudos to them. We do have one backcountry trail crew in the Emerald Lake area of Trinity Alps, and a second one in the Yola Wilderness, addressing fire damage and deferred maintenance. So they're out there doing good work for us. And Trinity RCD has been working in the Weaverville Community Forest, Weaver Basin Trail System, opening and maintaining those trails. Hopefully for this weekend as well, because this weekend we have the LaGrange mountain bike race. So exciting times this weekend. So some hot topics. Tara and I are still working on scheduling our open houses for this summer across Trinity County within our local communities. So keep an eye out on for that. This week we are super busy this week with the Joint Chiefs visit. That's made up of Forest Service staff and then NRCS staff. Today, June 4th, they are on the Mad River Ranger District. June 5th, they'll be in Hayfork. And then June 6th, they'll be here in Weaverville, looking at some work on the Weaverville Community Forest and some NRCS work. And then we're all gonna meet over at the VFW Hall for the second annual partner barbecue, which starts at noon. And I already spoke about the LaGrange mountain bike race. It's gonna be fun. I'm gonna have my daughter there. We're gonna race it. So it'll be good times. So hopefully we'll see quite a few people out there for that. Sarah Akridge, the district ranger for the Shasta Lake NRA unit, is unable to be here today. She did want me just to share a few notes. The Trinity Center Marina, the docks are in place and ready for moorage customers to move in. Fuel stations will be ready Thursday, June 6th. So she sent me a picture. It looks great. Fuel stations will be in place this Thursday. Trinity Camps project is close to being signed, and they have a planning team working on the North Trinity County Community Risk Reduction Project. And that project's basically from the north end of Weaverville all the way up to basically before you hit the grade, before you hit Scott Mountain. So large project there. Acres keep fluctuating. So, but I think it's gonna be 10,000 plus or minus. So a nice, big, large project. So in summary, staff on the west side, we're super busy. It's that time of the year. Just really appreciate all your guys' support. And as we move through the season, and if you guys have any questions, please let me know.
I do.
Mhm.
I have a question and a thank you. Is that good?
Works
First of
for
all,
me.
thank you for doing the work on Denny Road. That has been something that has kind of been angst in the community for a long time. There's a lot of work up there. So I'm super grateful to hear that that's happening. And then how come the Burnt Ranch campground is always closed? Is there a problem with something there or?
I would need to look into our rec officer for that.
Okay, yeah, I just have always wondered why it's been closed for years and I just have never knew the answer, so.
Yeah, I know Goldfield is because of the fire damage. Scott Flat, unsure why, but I'll look into Burnt Ranch for you.
Yeah,
I'll let you
it's
know.
no stress, just, I just have been curious, people ask fairly regularly, when are we gonna get our campground open again?
Okay.
Because it kind of brings in a little bit of economy, you know, stop at the cider store, get some grub, but anyway, thank you.
Mhm, you're welcome.
Any other? Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. Have a good day.
All right. The next item on our agenda, second presentation from the Sheriff's Office, receive a presentation regarding animal shelter operations and available resources. No fiscal impact.
Morning, Brian Ward, Sheriff's Office. Got a little presentation for you. So we'll start with the animal control, go into the animal shelter, and then into the animal rescue group. So our animal control, we're staffed with 2 animal control officers, one of which also is assigned as the animal shelter manager. Animal control on average receives over 550 calls for service a year. The calls for service with the animal control range anywhere from animal nuisance type calls, which are your dogs running loose, to barking dogs, things along those lines, to animal cruelty type cases, hurt or injured animals, animal welfare checks, and then also agency assists, where our ACOs are called out with other agencies to help with containing an animal, stuff like that, while they do their work. Some of the services they do: rabies licensing clinics. They do 4 different dates throughout the year at 8 different locations within the county. They tried to get it out to where they are in most areas of the county, try to cover it as best they can. They do spay and neutering vouchers issued by the shelter. The funding comes it's funded by funds that come into the shelter, and also by TASA. They deal with quarantine and bite investigations. They'll quarantine animals at the shelter. Also, they try to keep them at residences if it's possible. General public safety, conducting animal cruelty investigations again, care for animals removed due to investigations. They also conduct public outreach for animal care, such as their clinics, neuter and spading vouchers, things of that nature. ACO officers are the lead for the animal rescue group during the county emergencies. So when we actually have emergencies and our animal rescue group, which is volunteer group, come out, our ACOs act as the lead for that group. Some of the trends that they're actually seeing is increase in shepherd and mal type breeds. These are what they consider their high energy breed type dogs. They're also finding that it seems like people are carrying, taking on less animals within their home. They believe that some of that's due to financial strains, and also some of it's due, they believe, people that are getting a little bit older in their years are taking on less animals than they've had in the past. So the animal shelter is staffed with 1 shelter manager. It's also a part-time ACO officer. They also have 4 part-time care attendants and several volunteers that come in and help. The facility has 17 dog kennels, about 17 cat cages, 3 play yards for exercising dogs, and a large fenced-in area, about ½ acre in size, for some of the larger animals that they take in. Shelter receives animals brought to them by the ACO officers, obviously. Also, law enforcement officers at times end up picking up animals during calls. The general public, when the space allows, and animals that are surrendered by their owners, again, when space allows. On average, shelter takes in about 500 animals per year. Now, talking to them, they said the numbers have kind of gone down a little bit. That's partly due to the fact that they're keeping animals a little bit longer, and they're not able to take in as many animals because of that. Shelter staff receive on average over 1,400 calls at the shelter per year. And they're also now they're getting more in the way of messages through their social media outlets that they have. Some of the trends at the animal shelter, they're seeing more of the large or extra large dog breeds, such as your mal and shepherd type breeds, which again take up more space. They're also seeing they're getting more cats in cats. They're seeing that they're having more health issues, such as respiratory and this panleukopenia. So Some of the stats that they had for last year for 2023. Total animals entered into the shelter were 498. Animals reclaimed by their owners, 143. Animals adopted out were 143. Animals, unfortunately, that had to be euthanized, 162. And rescue groups that they were able to get animals to, 30 of them. So one of the organizations that's a huge help to the animal shelter is TASA. It's the Trinity Animal Shelter Auxiliary. It's an organization that's been dedicated to helping the Trinity Animal Shelter throughout the years. The group has volunteers that help with fundraising events for the shelter. They volunteer, do work with the shelter. They also conduct community trapping, neutering, release type programs. They take in donations to help cover the cost of the spay and neutering vouchers. They also help with the animals that are at the shelter with spay and neutering costs, other vet costs, and also help with large purchases such as washer, dryers, beds, shade cloths, things of that nature. Then our animal rescue group. Trinity County Animal Rescue Group is a volunteer group that's dedicated. It's a dedicated group of volunteers that come together during time of crisis to help animals in need within Trinity County and the state of California. The primary purpose, Trinity County Animal Rescue Group, is act under the direction of the Sheriff's Office, the ACO, with respects associated with assisting to rescue animals during a state of emergency within our county and the state of California. The activities may be acted upon by the request of the Trinity County Sheriff's Office, California Office of Emergency Services, Trinity County Office of Emergency Services, or other county and government agencies, and is not limited to the geographic boundaries of Trinity County. Basically means that our group is set up in a way that if we are called upon and requested for mutual aid in other parts of the state, that they're capable of responding and assisting in those areas. Team has on average about 15 to 20 volunteers. The volunteers are sworn in as disaster service workers and are asked to participate in trainings throughout the year. Trainings vary from general policy and procedure type trainings to the use of our radio system, medical training, map and navigation, the handling of large animals, incident command system paperwork, fire shelter use, and several other trainings. Group responds as it's needed within the county during natural disasters or other emergencies. Group is set up and capable of responding to mutual aid throughout the state of California. Volunteers are made up of people that are 18 years of age and older, must pass a basic criminal history background check as volunteer within the Sheriff's Office. Group works both with the Sheriff's Auxiliary and the Search and Rescue team at times. Groups receives donations for equipment through the Sheriff's Auxiliary nonprofit status. Recently, the group also received some assistance from our county OES in the way of getting them another animal rescue trailer. Huge thank you to Philip with Trinity County OES. So during a state of emergency, they're asked to respond and assist with evacuating animals whose owners need assistance with getting their animals out of harm's way. They assist with the care and feeding of animals that are sheltering in place during evacuation zones. So animals that they couldn't get out of those areas and they fall under evacuation orders, the group's set up to go back in and help with feeding and watering care of those animals. They assist with the care of animals that have been evacuated and are under the care of the ACO. So the animals that they do get out, if there's nowhere that the owners can take them, they'll set up locations, property owners that volunteer, and the animals will be kept there and cared for during that time until they can return home. They can assist with the functions at the Emergency Operations Center or the Incident Command Post as needed. And they can be asked to assist during search and rescue missions and the Sheriff's Auxiliary during special events. this will play. Here's a little video of them during the monument fire. They had gone in, I believe they picked up a cat and another animal during this and was obviously taking it out of the area. And we got a group of our volunteers here again during the monument fire where they were going, and some of the animals on the left, my left, were animals that were taken and cared for at one of the animal rescue group's residences until they were able to be returned to the owners. One in the middle was being cared for at the residence, and then again, them assisting with evacuating animals from the evacuation zones. So that's what we have. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Well, thank you for coming. I think the board may recall when we talked about trying to be proactive in our scheduling, this was one of those things that we said, so we come up to the budget year, there's always a request for enough money, I'll just call it, for things like this. And we don't have time at that moment to go dig deep into each organization or part of the organization that we're trying to decide how to fund. And so it's helpful to have this kind of information so we understand more about what we're talking about when this item comes up. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. That wraps up our presentations. At this time, we'll move into public comment. This time is for information from the public on matters not appearing on this agenda or within the consent calendar. All comments are limited to 3 minutes and must pertain to matters within the jurisdiction of this board. When addressing the board, please state your name for the record and address the board as a whole through the chair. No action or discussion will be conducted on matters not listed on the agenda. However, the chair may refer the subject matter to the appropriate department for follow-up or schedule the matter on a subsequent board agenda. Any public comment in the room? Online?
I have no raised hands.
Thank you. We will move into reports and announcements. I did notice that we received a number of department head reports this morning via email. Is there any department heads online that would like to present?
I have no raised hands.
Okay. Report from our CAO.
Thank you, Chair. Got a couple items for you today. First one is for our county public defender contract, which is up for renewal. The county did receive 3 responses from that request for proposal. And the evaluation team, which included members from county staff and the California State Association of Public Defenders, completed our evaluations and interviews last week. The final contract negotiations are currently underway, and the contract will be presented for board consideration on June 18th, with the new contract beginning July 1st. Just like to thank everyone for on the evaluation team for the time and efforts, and the county is going to be receiving good services for those members who require public defender services. The housing element meetings went well last week, and just as a reminder, there is a virtual housing element meeting scheduled for this evening, and information can be found on the Trinity 2050 website. The county preliminary budget will be brought forth for board consideration and action next meeting, June 18th. We're developing the preliminary budget a little differently this year, and not just bringing forth the department's full budget request as part of the preliminary budget, but we're strategically looking across the county wide budget as a whole and basically bringing forth 40% of the needed budget authority, which is adequate to get us through the late September, early October time period when we will adopt the board will be presented for adoption, the final budget for fiscal year 24-25. We're also using the ClearGov platform for the first time this year. And so as some of these documents are being brought forward to include what you'll see next board meeting, but more so between then and when we have the final adoption, some of the documents and formats are going to be a little bit different than years past. But the platform has been used for budget development and has been getting some positive feedback from the different departments. And it will allow us to present the material a little bit differently and with a little bit less manual manipulation behind the scenes. So excited about that platform. And as you're probably all aware, the state budget process is getting closer for the governor's final consideration. By June 15th, the legislator must pass a balanced budget recommendation, and then the governor has until June 27th to sign or reject that proposal. There's been lots of discussion publicly with various organizations to include the media, but we are expecting some changes in the HHS and BHS budgets, and our ability to provide the same level of local services will more than likely be affected, but we just don't have those details yet. But as the knowns become more aware, June 15th and then June 27th, as those deadlines meet, we'll have more details on that. But we are expecting some effects locally. And that is all I've got for you today.
Thank you. Okay, shifting to reports from members of the Board of Supervisors. We'll start with Supervisor Gogan.
I had no out-of-county travel. I did attend the oral health advisory meeting last week, and we are still working in this group with the kids from about 1 to 5, trying to get them on board with oral health care and their parents also. It's a great group. We're moving forward. We will have the kiddie bus, we'll say, ready by the end of this year, and it will be coming around to all schools to do minor dental repairs, x-rays, hardening, some fillings, and offering them toothbrush, toothpaste, fluoride, that kind of stuff. So it's moving along pretty good. I think we have a great group, and we'll keep it up. On the 30th, as Trent mentioned, we had a zoning meeting in Hayfork that was fairly well attended. I think it went well. It was facilitated well, and we are looking forward to the next one. We got a long way to go and a lot of stuff to do. So we will be onward and forward with that. On the 28th, I was at a Firewise meeting in Douglas City where we went over the evacuation routes that some people knew about and some other folks did not. Some people were unclear of what district they were in. Some people are in my voting district, but not in my Firewise or not in my fire safe boundary district, or vice versa. So we kind of got that cleared up. There's a little bit of ambiguity between who are mine and who are yours. I think we have that somewhat cleared up, which was a good thing. And then on Memorial Day, myself, Supervisor Carpenter Harris, and Supervisor Frazier were at the cemetery in Hayfork, and we read the names of all the veterans of all the wars that lived in Hayfork, and it was a great time there. I enjoyed doing it. I think it was my 4th time doing it. I hope to continue doing it. It's a great memorial for those people who served for us. I have a town hall meeting coming up at the Roderick Center on Wednesday, June 12th, which is looking forward to that. They've been well attended. A lot of good discussion comes out of it. And I think they and I are glad that these are going on. So I look for a good one on the 12th. And after this meeting today, I leave for a Trinity Management Council meeting, in Wichita. That will be on Wednesday and Thursday, 2-day meeting. And that is about it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Carpenter Harris.
Yes, I had no out-of-county travel. Went through some of the standard meeting procedures that fill our calendars all the time. And then as Supervisor Gogan mentioned, participated in the Memorial Day reading of the names, and then continued on down to High and Palm and read names there in the small cemetery there. So it's just nice to get out in the district and see the folks and talk to people and connect and figure out ways to better serve. So I'm thankful for that.
Nice. Supervisor Frazier.
No out of county travel. I had some local meetings, start on the 21st after our last board meeting. I went to did the hazard mitigation plan meeting in Bad River. Then also attended the housing element in Hayfork. Yesterday, I had a behavioral health advisory board meeting here in Weaverville. And tomorrow I will be in Calusa. So hopefully have more to report out on the next meeting from that meeting at CGT CAP meeting.
All right, Supervisor Cox.
I also had no out-of-county travel. I attended the Memorial Day ceremony here in Weaverville and just want to offer thanks to our honor guard and our veterans who provided a really beautiful opportunity for us to gather and pause, reflect, and appreciate all that we've been given. They so faithfully do that year after year, and just want to thank them for their service and that opportunity that they give to us. I was on the CSAC homeowners insurance meeting where supervisors were able to interact with a commissioner from the Little Hoover Commission as our CSAC representative. I'm sure you'll have more to share about that, but that's an interesting process, and was on an RCRC legislation call and also at the housing element meeting, and have the opportunity to upcoming this next week to present before a Senate subcommittee regarding SB 820. So more to share about that as that unfolds, but that's a great, I think, opportunity for our county to be at the table in some of these conversations. So, end of report.
Great. Well, the word must have gotten out that our budget was tight on travel, so no out of county travel for all of us. Along that lines, I, as a representative of Trinity County, was placed on the advisory committee for the California Jobs First. And as a result of that, the county will be receiving $5,000. It's part of a stipend, I guess, that comes for participation. And so we're putting that into our travel budget, since that continues to be a challenge, the very limited amount of money that we have to represent the county in all these committees. With the SCED, the Economic Development Organization, I did finally have the opportunity to start the process of leading that group through a strategic planning process. So we're just getting underway, but it was exciting to get that started and had some very good discussion. I wanted to highlight that Supervisor Cox and I had the opportunity to participate at the youth advocacy event recently at the high school. And I just want to call out the tremendous effort by the youth and the adult allies, the people that were there hosting it from a professional standpoint. The kids were really doing a lot of it, but the professionals said they had never in all of their years seen as strong of an adult ally turnout as they had for this function, which I thought was really cool, that, you know, that the community's really come behind this. And I have to say, I came in late from other things, but the kids had done a presentation I was able to see later, and they really did some great work. And I think one of the things that stands out to me was in the survey they did of other youth, and I think it was 85 respondents, 25% reported having suicidal thoughts. And this was all about how, what are the stresses on the kids in this transitional age, and what can be done. And so it was a great event, and my hat's off to those folks. Within TCDC, the community organization, held a meeting in Hayfork that had a focus on housing and economic development, workforce development, tourism development, and tourism marketing. And it was a good turnout and really good discussion. And I just wanted to call out the Hayfork folks for showing up and contributing. And it was a really nice evening with some good outcomes. Nortec, which is the workforce development group, I actually had to miss that board meeting because that was taking place at the same time as our special joint session regarding the zoning ordinance update. But the work that we had been doing on the committee for strategic planning and such was presented and adopted. And one of the things that was interesting is that there was actually a board evaluation. And so it's sort of a self-evaluation, but the board is being sent a survey that we crafted that is asking them about the effectiveness of the board as they see it, of themselves, and measured by the ways that were identified, identifying what experiences and skill sets they bring so that this group can look at it and say, well, how can we tap into these board members more effectively? So I think it'll be really interesting to see, and different than, the five of us sitting here, this is about a 40-person board.
Oh, wow.
So it's going to be really interesting to see how we can start to tap into each other's gifts, if you will, more effectively, and just get more aligned, although that's already happening. Let's see, California Jobs First, I already mentioned the funding. The other part is that we're at that point where we were finalizing the criteria for selecting projects. So this is that organization, the funding source that has got $9 million to fund planning efforts for projects, not the implementation yet, just the planning. And I know that Trinity County has a number of projects submitted. Those will be considered as part of this process. And one of the things that I thought was encouraging is that there is an ongoing commitment that 70% of that funding will go to the rural underserved communities. So very specifically calling out places like Redding and Anderson and Oroville and saying, it's not that they can't get funding, but 70% of the funding has to go to others before it goes to them. And each county should have at least one project and be impacted by one project. So I really do believe that there, some way or another, Trinity County is going to benefit from this, which is good because it's been a lot of work trying to get this to this point. But and then next year would come the implementation funding that would then take these projects that have been fleshed out with this $9 million and turn it into an actual project implementation. As Supervisor Cox noted, the CSAC Insurance Working Group, this is within CSAC, there is a working group committee, if you will, of county supervisors that came together to focus on this. And these meetings are now being held to try to gather the input that they can use to carry forward proposals and such to all the audiences that might need it to actually make something happen. And one of the things that Supervisor Cox and I put on the table that appears to be being adopted is to do surveys of the communities to gather data points as well as stories, because they're looking for the kind of rest of the story to help not just say, hey, we really need this, but here's the data. Here's the number of homes that have been lost and never rebuilt because of insurance. Here's the number of home sales that have fallen through because of no insurance. Here's the amount of homes that have their insurance has gone up by 40%. Here's the amount of homes that have now spend 20% of their total net income on insurance, and those kinds of things, as well as then some stories. And so hopefully that'll come through. I'm going to keep nudging them because if they aren't going to do it, I will. But I think it looked like they were going to jump on that. And as we said, it would be more powerful to have it for all of the counties instead of just Trinity County. But we'll do ours regardless. Sierra Nevada Conservancy, we had our sub-region meeting. Again, we're not the voting member this year, but we will be in 2025 and 2026. And so this is an opportunity for those of us who are not voting members to weigh in about the agenda to the voting member, who is this year out of Siskiyou County. And then I did want to mention, I attended a Lewiston Community Association meeting, and I mention this because this is a new nonprofit in Lewiston that's focused on community development. As an example, they are the hosts now of the recent Lewiston Peddlers Fair, which had thousands of people this last weekend. They have a Visit Lewiston, California website, so they're acting a lot like a chamber, but they've just come together, formed their own nonprofit, and are making things happen. And heads up for our CAO, I suggested that they send a note and say, we think that we should be considered on the list of people that could be considered for funding from the TOT, because I don't see that they're doing anything different than others, and in some ways, maybe more. Okay, that's my report. Reports from the ad hocs. Supervisor Carpenter Harris, I think you said no update for tribal matters this time? Okay. And on the cannabis ordinance update, I wanted to give notice, and I can forward an email later with more details if you're interested. But after discussion with CAO Tuthill, we decided that we're going to dissolve this committee for now. And the primary reasons are that we see the need for all the work that we're doing in zoning, in general plan, in community plan updates to happen, because they so much inform then what happens with the rest of the ordinance. And that even though there are other parts of the ordinance that we could try to keep pushing through, you're not going to implement them without public input. And we're in the middle of so much public input with community plans, ordinances, and zoning ordinances. So as somewhat frustrating as it is, we had all these great public workshops and we had some momentum, and we're gonna do it. And then we just realized, yeah, you could keep pushing forward, but you'd probably be redoing work. You would probably be wearing people out. And the smarter process is to let this other thing go. Not that this other stuff isn't going to be worked. CAO Tuthill was able to confirm everything that we took out of those public workshops has been documented. It's going to be shared with the consultants that are doing general plan, community plan, zoning ordinance, so forth, so that they can have that knowledge as they're working and help make sure that we're including the right things in that work, so that when we do get to the point of that wrapping up, we also could be in a place where we could be finalizing the work that is being done on the cannabis ordinance. I think the one thing I do want to call out is, I alone can attest to hundreds of hours that have been invested in this, but if you look back to Supervisor Frazier, hundreds and hundreds of hours before that. And I know that especially on his part, we were hopeful that we could wrap this all up before he left us at the end of this term. But Supervisor Reed, I just want to thank you. You made such a huge contribution to our work in that area. And even though we're not going to see the goal happen before you leave, we know that we wouldn't be where we are and won't get to where we'll get to without what you've done. Thank you. Okay, with that, we'll move to the consent calendar. These items include routine, non-controversial matters and will be acted upon by the board by one roll call motion. If a member of the public has any questions or comments on an item on the consent calendar, they may provide them now. A member of the board or staff may request an item be pulled and considered separately. Do we have any public comment on the consent calendar?
I have no raised hands.
Okay. Did any board member have an item they wanted to pull for discussion?
I do not.
No. I will entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve as presented.
I will second.
Supervisor Carpenter Harris,
Aye.
Supervisor Frazier,
Aye.
Supervisor Cox,
Aye.
Supervisor Gogan,
Aye.
Chairman Lutweiler.
Aye. Thank you. All right, under county matters, these items include non-routine or controversial matters and are listed alphabetically by department. A member of the board, staff, or public may request that an item be heard out of order. Is there any request for something to be heard out of order?
No,
Okay.
sir.
All right, number one, under community development, natural resources. Approve a budget adjustment for fiscal year 23-24 for natural resources, Department 2700, decreasing revenues and increasing transfers in by $132,562. Approve a budget adjustment for fiscal year 23-24 for contributions to other funds, Department 1990, increasing transfers out by $132,562. And approve a budget adjustment for fiscal year 23-24 for general fund contingency, Department 9901, decreasing provisions for contingency by $132,562. Increase in general fund appropriations in the amount of $132,562. Current cash balance in natural resources fund is negative $125,120 and 50 cents. And current balance in general fund contingency is $357,180. Is that, CAO, are you taking this?
Well, I know David's here and can answer questions as needed. I do want to just introduce this and make the general statement that, we are in fact requesting contingency funds here. The board may recall back in September, I was the one sitting in this seat making the request to on-ramp a natural resources capability, which we have done. It's not a full-up division yet. It may never morph into that, or may take another amount of time to morph into a full division within the community development department. But we've made some significant progress during this transition year. You may recall 1 and 2 board meetings ago that we did get commitments from the Watershed Center and RCD for, basically going forth from this point forward for 3 and a 5-year commitment for the funding amounts that they had previously committed to when we decided, as a county and you decided as a board to move forward in this direction. The other big funding source for this effort is via the Good Neighbor Authority and the SPAs. We've got one of those right now, and David's currently, working the second one. The funding looks good for that, in the tune of about the same that the first SPA was for. So he will have some, he and the natural resources area will have some funding for that. So those are the 3 main sources. And then he's working some private, I would call them private, smaller dollar specific contracts for they're project dependent, whether he's working a CEQA or some other type of environmental permit, with the water board or with Fish and Game, some other action an individual is taking. He's entered some contracts for those, and those are in the tune of, $1,000 to $2,000 usually, but it offsets his cost, and that is not a direct cost to the general fund. So I believe we are making significant positive headway in this arena. I believe the board has noticed, and there's been some touch points throughout the last 9 months where David and Natural Resources has weighed in, provided comments, written letters, provided advice. And I think that brings benefit to the county as a whole, as we are so natural resource heavy in this county. And that is just something that we will always be dependent upon. And I think there will be some level of general fund draw that will be appropriate for this. We're probably still in the discovery phases of where that will land, maybe in that 10%-ish range. But the funding we're asking for today will bring us whole for this fiscal year. And then beginning next fiscal year, 1 July, we've got those funding commitments in place. And I'm confident, we won't be coming back to the board for this type of contingency ask during the next fiscal year, because we will have done that on-ramping action. There's been a lot of administrative stuff that's David's been working behind the scenes just to get the budget code set up properly and to get the the funds transferred, and just to get everything set up administratively, there's some time it's taken, and that's, not quote billable hours to any particular organization. That's just something we had to accept and get set up as a county, but we've got a lot of that in place now. So I'm confident going forward, we're going to be in a much better spot, but we do need this amount of contingency funds. And you may also recall that this is the first real contingency fund ask this year. And, we're 29 days away from the end of the calendar years or the end of the fiscal year. So we've been very intentional in that going forward. And we don't have any other contingency request, at least on the horizon, that I'm aware of right now. So this one and the next item you'll see are going to be the two contingency requests for this fiscal year. And with that, I'll leave the introduction, and we can go into any questions that I or David or Ed may be able to ask or answer after this.
Any questions for Trent or David or Ed? Yes? Yes, go
I don't
ahead.
really have a question.
Oh.
I just have a comment. Is that
After.
now, or we gotta wait till after the,
Comments later.
okay.
Thank you. But yes, you have a question?
When you mentioned 10%, I just want to clarify, that would be 10% of the need of that division, not 10% of the general fund.
Correct. Correct. And some of that is just to put some of that in context, as examples, we had to comment on a, well, we were requested, we didn't have to, but we were requested to comment on like a BLM plan. That's not quote billable to any of these other organizations. That's a true county cost, a county requirement. If I want them to go look at something with the vegetative management ordinance and look at what we should be doing countywide from a natural resources division, I mean, there's going to be some little ask there to do that aren't going to be billable to these individual organizations. But collectively, if we feel that's of benefit to the whole of county and where we need to be going to protect our natural resources, to reduce our wildfire risk, work in the hazard mitigation, those are things that I believe will be in that small percent of the general fund draw. And I do believe there's significant benefit to the county and county residents for that.
Certainly.
Great.
And then next question, is there, when we entered into this initially, we did have the hope of some funding that, is delayed. Now with those projects coming forward and what we thought was going to happen, now we've overcome that inertia. Is there any hope that this or any portion of this funding would at some point be returned to the general fund? Or that doesn't really work that way?
No, this won't. This is billable hours that we've already incurred, and we can't go back and recoup that in any type of cost recovery.
Okay, very good. And then just if you could speak a bit, I think that there will be in days to come, not just things like you described about the BLM project and looking at that, but some areas that this division will truly offer as a service to members of the public generally who may need that service. A good reason to have such a division. Can you provide any thoughts that way?
I mean, my thoughts are initially I would concur with that. As I stated, we are a natural resource rich county, and I believe that having that awareness and knowledge and being engaged, having that seat at the table, if you will, on all these different committees and within the organizations that we come in contact with will benefit us as we move forward. And I do believe there is that element we will see more and more of in the future. It's really going to come down to board priorities and funding and available resources to fund this. Right now, I think we've done a pretty good job to offset that general fund need and draw, and how we've got specific funding from other sources. But with that, the downfall of that is the available time for the natural resources staff to then spend on other projects outside of where those funding sources are coming from is reduced because we have commitments with those organizations to fulfill those obligations. So it's good, but it comes with constraints.
Mhm.
As far as just being able to, have the public or you or I go in there and say, hey, I got this great idea. Let's go research this and let's go, develop a science project and figure out if this is going to work.
Mhm.
Well, we got to always be mindful of the scope of that and the financial impact of that and how we can minimize that and get the most return on investment.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll open to public comment. Any in the room? Any online?
I have no raised hands.
All right. Entertain a motion?
Move to approve as presented.
I will
Well, sir-
second. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I will second.
And for discussion, a couple of things. One is kind of along the lines of what you were just saying, where my mind went was, well, if we're having to spend this money because we had these people, but we didn't get the projects that we had hoped for because of delays working with those other organizations, but we had these people, so we must have gotten a lot of other work done that we wouldn't have been able to otherwise. And they were able to confirm that and give me examples, which I thought was great. And I think to me that speaks to the benefit of having this is, no, we couldn't afford to keep putting this much money into this division every year with other constraints that we have. But with the balancing act that's been arranged and a lot of those pieces I think of the puzzle have been put in place, it gives us the ability to have this division of professionals that have work to do and then they're there when we need them versus we wish we had them, but we could never get something going. So I love that this has happened. I know this didn't play out exactly how we wanted to this year, which was not all in our court. But my understanding too is that all these pieces have now fallen into place and we are much more confident about our ability to work and keep the resources busy with other people's money as more so than ours.
And to your point, I would just add, I wish I had documented it. The plethora of times over the first 2 years that I have served in this seat, that topics came up, projects came up, and the answer was, well, if we just had a natural resources division, we could have fill in the blank. And this kind of dreamy-eyed, maybe someday, that will be our reality. And then that becoming a real priority and saying, no, we don't want to see those things fall through the cracks. And if this is what it takes to overcome that bit of inertia and to get it up and functioning, there's sometimes an upfront cost to things that are worthwhile and really matter. And I think to the CA's point, we will never be a county that is not natural resource rich. And so having a space that really handles and manages those things and a very concrete, if we had had this in place when we were working that Good Neighbor Authority originally, that G&A would be different. The way the spas line out, where that funding can land would not be so limited as it's had to be. Hats off and great gratitude to Director Kokas for taking it on and finding the nexus to roads, that we did so that we can have the money coming in, but it would have been different and bigger. So glad it's here now. And if that's what it takes, I'm so supportive of it.
Yeah, I just want to thank David for his work. I think he's been interim director of 4 or 5 different departments since I've been here. Extremely capable. This is right up his alley. So I'm glad he's the guy doing it. And I think we're going to be in great shape and in good hands. And thank you, David, for doing it.
I just want to kind of just concur with everybody. I've had the chance to work on a couple projects with this department and have been very pleased with the professionalism and the work that's done. I also am very aware that Trinity County is, as everyone has mentioned, a natural resource community, and that community is pretty tight. And I'm just grateful that we have relationships already established, because David has stepped in, as in many other scenarios, to establish those relationships. And I think that there is nothing better we can do in the natural resource area with all of the momentum that the great work of the Forest Service has done with the Big Ranch project and the High and Pond project. And then also as things come up, with the Great Redwood Trail and with the land acquisition in the North County, it is just imperative that we have somebody representing the county in those scenarios. And I'm super grateful for your background and for your willingness to do that. And I also am confident that just because of the history of the way funding comes into this county for natural resources, that this little boost to get us through will be, if it has to happen in the future, it'll be smaller and smaller. But I do want to make sure that we do keep a piece of him right now, but maybe them for our county needs. I think that that's really, really going to grow in importance. And the more we have the opportunity to benefit from this department, I think we're going to find more and more places where our voice into, from a natural resources seat into everything from maybe even at the, TMC and obviously the fire stuff, but just to have that solid voice always at the ready and the capacity to back that up with document if necessary, even when we look at bills that come before our Congress and state assembly or Senate in the state, and then also even at an ACA level will be helpful to have that at the ready. So I don't want us to give too much of them away. I want to make sure that we keep our fair share, if you will, because I don't see this kind of work getting smaller. So thank you for the work.
Any other discussion?
Supervisor Carpenter Harris,
Aye.
Supervisor Cox,
Aye.
Supervisor Gogan,
Aye.
Supervisor Frazier,
Aye.
Chairman Lutwiler.
Aye. One follow-up comment, I just want to not let it be lost that we did just hear less than a month before we get our next year's look at the budget is the first time that the contingency fund has been touched. And I'm 99.9% sure that wasn't the first time funds were requested from the contingency fund. But thanks to the fiscal responsibility of our CAO, we're sitting here with all this money still here. So thank you for that, Trent. All right, next item, community development planning. Approve a budget adjustment for fiscal year 23-24 for planning, Department 2800, increasing services and supplies by $10,000 and approve a budget adjustment for fiscal year 23-24 for general fund contingency, Department 9901, decreasing provisions for contingency by $10,000, increase in general fund appropriations in the amount of $10,000, current general fund contingency balance after the previous budget adjustment is $224,618.
So Chair, let me do the same thing with this one. I know Ed's in the room and Ella may be on Zoom. But I kind of want to tee this one up similar to the last one and give a little bit of a history as far as why we're here with planning and where we've come from and where we want to go. And it's just important to me for us as a county staff and the board to realize, where we were with planning, where we are and where we'd like to go and what this $10,000 is going to do. So, we have struggled here to push projects through the planning department. That has been mainly staff capacity driven. And those facts are what they are. To date, we have now, established many processes. We've established a list of specific projects. Some are very old, some are brand new, and the status of those, and we're working through those to validate and ensure that our time spent on those is time well spent. And if the applicant is done with the project, then we're not going to spend any more time on the project either. We do have some in that category, and like I said, we're working through those. And we've made a lot of progress on that since we've been able to, have a full-time senior planner in the position to establish some of these processes and really focus and commit on this work. And I'm very happy where we're at right now. We've also been able to team up with SHN. We have a good sized contract with them to get services from them. The specific ask here is to continue those services for the next 30 days, basically, so we don't put ourselves in a start and stop methodology. Some of the specific items they're going to be working on is the Ruth Lake SUD that has come before the board under the last couple. meetings under the, limited density housing ordinance concept and some of the things that were discovered there from a planning perspective and the need to move those along. So without this money, basically is what we would have to do is stop SHN work on things we have already asked them to do. They're already working some of what I would consider more of the simpler projects, if you will, the ones that we just don't have the staff capacity to get to. And we've got to get that initial review done and get back to the applicant to say, hey, you need to provide us more information, or what information you've provided is adequate, but we got a few questions. So it's just a full package review, and whether we submit an incomplete letter to them or request for more information, those things need to continue. And it will be extremely inefficient if we have to stop what they're doing for a very short period of time when we already have some momentum going, and then restart then, which is going to add some more time to getting these projects going again. So that's what we're trying to avoid here, is that, start and stop and inefficiencies. And I do believe we have some good relationships and efficiencies created with SHN as a consultant. They bring capacity to the tune of about, 2-ish associate planners to the table for us for a very reasonable rate in a consultant mindset. So I believe they're going to stay and need to be, a future part of our team as we continue to work through these projects. And as we get our handle on this, then we will be able to, scope their efforts appropriately going into, fiscal year 24-25. So that's what this $10,000 is for, is to bridge this next, 30 days or so, and to continue SHN working on our behalf and completing projects for the members of the county who have submitted projects. And with that, I'll stop and see if there's any other questions or other discussion.
Okay, thank you. Any questions at this time? Have discussion in a bit. Okay, public comment in the room? Online?
I have no raised hands.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Discussion? I just want to comment then, I think we can't lose sight of the fact that this department is knowingly understaffed, and we're in the midst of the general plan, the community plans, the zoning ordinance, the housing element updates, and I think we're starting to finally see some pickup in permit requests and things like that. So $10,000 ask at the end of the year to just keep some momentum, I think is very little to ask for what the workload that we put on this group, especially right now. This has got to be an insane time. So appreciate the make it happen attitude. And I think we can certainly do our part.
Yes, I would just like to take this opportunity, Chair, based upon your comment, is to, acknowledge the efforts of Bella specifically and Ed sitting here, the leadership that they've provided to get us to where we're at. There has been lots of discussions we've had, strategy sessions, working this out, but, they're the ones that work the details. And especially Bella, she has felt overwhelmed, and I'm sure still feels overwhelmed now as far as what we have in front of us, just by those things you mentioned. But she is doing a very, very good job balancing that and pushing these things forward and representing our county very well when we have all of the various reviews of, those community plans, ordinance updates, general plan elements. All of these things are starting to come together. And, we have a lot of work in front of us, but we are making some significant progress. And I do just want to recognize, she and Ed's work to make this happen.
Thank you. All right, call the vote.
Supervisor Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Frazier?
Aye.
Supervisor Carpenter Harris?
Aye.
Supervisor Gogan?
Aye.
Chairman Lutweiler?
Aye. Thank you. Third item under Human Resources, adopt an updated Trinity County Human Resources drug and alcohol policy to comply with the current federal and state laws.
Good morning. I think it's still morning. Yeah, Chairman Luke Weiler and supervisors. I'm here today for this particular, and the next. We had a lot of changes both federally and through the state as far as doing drug screens, both pre-employment and for reasonable suspicion, et cetera. And so we've updated this from, I think it was a 1980 policy in order to comply with the state and federal laws that are now in place, especially with cannabis no longer being illegal in the state, but still required under federal law. The state also had decided that all members of a organization should be tested equally when they come in rather than sporadically by department. And so that's one of the biggest changes here, I think, besides what state and federal are saying, is that we'll now be testing all accepted applicants, applicants that have accepted the role before they start, rather than just a few of them. Any questions I can answer for you?
Any questions? Did you have one?
No questions.
Okay, okay. I wanted to clarify, I was reading through, trying to make sure I was following, and one key component of this was the new regulations about how cannabis is treated in the process.
Yes.
And if I understood it in the very layman's terms, it's basically kind of like alcohol. It's like, well, yeah, you can't be using either one while you're working. And otherwise, there's no implications as long as you are not, under the influence while you're working. We still have I'll call it higher level drugs, narcotics, whatever, that we find that's a whole different ballgame. And then very specifically that anything that has to do with cannabis use and so forth, can't be considered as part of the hiring process. Is that loosely how that plays out?
Yeah, it's a lot more involved than that, but there are two different ways to measure cannabis. One is the existence of it as far as recency. And then there's another that will test if it's ever been in the system. And well, not ever, within biological constraints, of course. But there's nothing to tell whether or not they're under the influence of it, as there is with alcohol. So that's one of the big differences. And we're only allowed to test for current rather than previous. And so that's for the federal side of it, because DOT, et cetera, that still fall under federal grants will still be monitored for that.
Okay. And the other question was more along the lines of, you mentioned equal or consistent application across the all divisions and departments and so forth. And it just occurred to me, so elected officials are employees. Will elected officials be involved in this process going forward or not?
We're still examining that part of it. It's not in the policy right now, as there's a lot of controversy surrounding it, as you can probably imagine. And so we're still determining that and reserve the right to add it later if that's where it turns out.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't think of that to let you know I was going to ask the question, but it just really occurred to me as we were listening to you. So
Sure.
thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Other questions?
Well, that does spawn a question, and that is, I'm curious, when you've mentioned, we reserve the right to add this later if needed. I'm curious, what's on your docket? Are you continuing to do some research and this will be actively looked at this time?
Yes.
Okay, to where it doesn't sit on the shelf and maybe it reappears and maybe not. Okay,
Yeah, no,
great.
we're looking at it right
Great.
now.
thank you.
That's why it took so long to bring it. It should have come last session along with the workplace violence. But we wanted to make sure we had it right to today's standards,
Mhm.
but are still looking into it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Others?
Yeah, I know some folks have a cannabis medical exemption, we'll say. Does that come into place here at all?
It doesn't in that it's only a California, it's a state, it's not a federal thing. And so we're not looking at cannabis at all for California. The federal still don't care if you have a medical release for it or not. So, for the federal grant, departments, it's still, medical marijuana is not considered existent.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, we'll open for public comment. Seeing none in the room.
I have no raised hands.
All right, entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
I will second.
Any discussion?
I just would like, man,
Yeah.
I'm grateful for the, I guess, the equity piece that it has to go across all departments or everyone is coming in. I've always thought it a bit strange that, in the private sector, there's excessive, I mean, you get your name drawn sometimes 2-3 times in a row. And yet oftentimes in government employment, it's, oh, we don't have to do it, or, it's very relaxed. And I've always thought that that was kind of an interesting dichotomy because you're using federal dollars, state dollars, and county dollars, and yet in the public sector, it's more aggressive. But so I'm grateful for your work. And I mean, golly, if it's really been since 1980, I think it was probably high time we had an update. So I do appreciate that. Thank you.
I will comment though, reasonable suspicion, which I think you're referring to about the randomness of it. I mean, not reasonable, the random selection part of it is still only for those safety sensitive roles where it's required by law to do
Yeah,
that.
Class A
So,
licenses
Yeah.
and those types of things.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Supervisor Gogan,
Aye.
Supervisor Carpenter Harris,
Aye.
Supervisor Cox,
Aye.
Supervisor Frazier,
Aye.
Chairman Lutwiler.
Aye. All right, thank you. Item 4, also human resources, adopt a policy that changes the Trinity County Leave Bank Program to a, did I miss one? No? Change the Trinity County Leave Bank Program to a vacation compensatory time off donation program, no fiscal impact.
So this one also was a very old, well, not very old, policy that we had kind of moved away from it already, as most departments have taken it upon themselves to check and see if there's anybody within the department that would care to assist their fellow coworker in a time of need by donating directly to that employee. So the last few that we've had in this year have mostly been that. Everybody that has applied for the bank and been approved by the committee did receive the time from the bank. This will close out the bank, which will assist in the auditor's office having more efficiencies, as a lot of time was donated to this function. It will also allow our employees to ask for time for any reason rather than just extreme illness lasting for a long period of time. We had several people who needed to be out for their house burning down or other disasters like that, that unfortunately we weren't able to service under our prior policy and will be now. So it helps in lots of ways.
I have a question.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Will this allow other departments to be drawn from and then also contribute into, like, the departments will all be connected? It won't just be in one.
That is,
So everybody can help everybody or draw from everybody if necessary.
that is correct.
Okay.
We will be using IT as a third-party type to send out to all users for us
Nice. Okay.
with this program.
Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you.
And any other questions? I did want to clarify a couple things I thought as I saw it. Again, apologies for not asking the questions in advance, but my assumption was if I am a higher paid employee and I donate my 8 hours, the person who's taking the 8 hours is still getting paid their 8 hours pay, not mine, if you will. And it's just hours, not dollars so much. And then also I saw that there seemed to be some kind of cleanup that I don't know was policy or administration, but of hours that have been donated and the people are no longer even here. And so we're trying to make sure it's just current. And so we're not carrying this balance that we shouldn't as a fiscal burden to the organization. Is that accurate?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
So it looked like a nice cleanup and great. I kind of missed the part about expanding the reasons that they could request and the examples you gave are great ones. So thank you for that.
My pleasure.
Okay. Open for public comment
I have no raised hands.
and entertain a motion.
Move to approve as presented.
I'll second.
I have a comment.
Oh, please
if
go ahead.
that's okay. So this topic is kind of near and dear to my heart because of when my father was incredibly ill with cancer. I had 2 small children at the same time and I had a full-time job, and every 2 hours of leave I would earn, I had to spend it immediately, whether it was taking my dad to the hospital, to the doctor, or something that my kids needed. And towards the end, I had exhausted every ounce of all of my leave, whether it was vacation or a sick leave. And I wasn't able to get bereavement leave because I'd already exhausted all of it in its caring for my father on the front side. And so I had to return to work the day after my dad died, and I was just told to deal with it. And so having the opportunity for people to say, I need a few more minutes to catch my breath, I think is an absolute justice to humanity. Asking people to be in a place at work when their mind's not there and their body's not there because they are just emotionally trashed because of a situation that has occurred is really cruel. And so I'm happy to see that we have expanded this across departments and that people will have the opportunity to ask when it's just simply a human need. So thank you for the work that you've done in this area for the folks in our county.
Thank you.
Supervisor Frazier,
Aye.
Supervisor Cox,
Aye.
Supervisor Carpenter Harris,
Aye.
Supervisor Gogan,
Aye.
Chairman Lutwiler.
Aye. Thank you. All right, under closed session report out from our last meeting, I have was item G1, Government Code Section 54954.5C, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, number of cases 1, Westlands Water District 5, all persons interested in the matter of the contract between the United States and Westlands Water District, Fresno County Superior Court case number 19 CEC GO 3887. And direction was provided to staff. With that, we will move into closed session. We have 2 items, F1, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, 54956.9, case number 324-CV-02211, SL versus Trinity County. And F2, County Government Code Section 54954.5C, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, number of cases 1, NEPA. And with that, we will open for public comment.
I have no raised hands.
And with that, we will wrap up our open session, move into closed session. Thank you.